Adam Schneider, welcome to the Preconstruction Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Good. Thank you very much for reaching out. We were joking beforehand. There's not enough pre-con folks at your level reaching out to talk about and shout about this wonderful world of pre-construction and estimating. So thank you for giving up your time. So anybody doesn't know Adam, he is Executive Director at Snyder Langston in Orange County, California. He is thankfully given up his time to come on and talk about all things pre-construction. But it wasn't always pre-construction for you, Adam. Take us back, construction management degree out of Ohio. Then you went straight into operations for, looks like about 11 years. How was that? Was it just a natural kind of progression? You got the construction management degree. You thought, you know what, the lectures, everything's pointing towards the field.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks again for having me. And so kind of coming right out of college, it's just that same that path, right? You go right into project engineering, and you go right down the project management path, and it's a great spot to learn. And so I stayed on that path for, I think you said about 11 years, and had the opportunity really to grow and learn. And in the background, always had a passion for what I kind of call setting up the deal. And so yeah, I ran some very large projects of $100 million, and got a great kind of backbone of knowledge and process, and it really springboarded me into pre-con about how do we create success for our operations teams, having been there and having seen both good execution of pre-con and poor execution of pre-con. How do we make sure that we create some consistency in the process? And so I think it's been about 6 years now I've been fully pre-con, kind of off the direct projects, but it's been a great transition so far.
Brilliant. And did you see it on the operations side? Did you see it, obviously good pre-con, bad pre-con? Did you see how important it was during your stage, or was there ever a chance that you were always going to stay in operations? Or were you just that guy that just wanted to do more, wanted to make it better for everyone earlier on?
Yeah, I definitely saw, you can, I think everybody that's in ops can feel getting into a project if it's set up right or not. But I always was diving around, even while I was in ops, helping other projects, trying to get engaged in pursuits, trying to make sure that I was, building those skills, which are learned, I think, I don't think anything in pre-con is just intuitive. And then really trying to refine what I felt would create success, until I was able to be put in a position of kind of where I'm now, where I have oversight of the entire organizational pre-con, to really create a consistent process. And I think, I think you and I could agree there's no one project or one size fits all in pre-con, but you can create a pretty consistent process or list of questions to ask that can really start to generate thought and generate people thinking differently. And we always, talk about the art and the science. And my goal is to get people kind of focused on the art of pre-con, because the science can really be formulaic. We have a great team around me of estimators, and we actually utilize our operations team as our pre-con support a lot more. So we bring our ops in early and try to really build that continuity of pre-construction to construction really early.
Yeah, that's something you mentioned a couple of times, was the process and then the collaboration. Because when you go from to 11 years of operations into pre-construction, I mean, it's invaluable. We're seeing it more and more with the general contractors. They're taking their best operations people and they're moving into pre-con, because when you talk about art and science, you've kind of got to go through 3 or 4 bad projects before you can really understand what can go wrong and how to put it right early on. One thing you talk a lot about is process and that kind of collaboration between operations and pre-construction. But another thing that you touched on a couple of times was the collaboration and the openness and the transparency between the owner and the GC and the architect. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's something I know we spend a lot of time on. We put even a plan together early on about how are we going to create this alignment. We always look at it, and I learned this early on in my career of a visual of a three-legged stool, and the seat is project success. The owner has a leg, the contractor has a leg, and the design team has a leg. But if you pull any leg of the stool, it's going to fall. And we began to really believe that it's our responsibility and ownership to build that team alignment. And as much as you can have a victim mentality, like we're just trying to do what we do. If we don't build the team and put everybody's mindset into project success, we know that the outcome isn't going to be what we want. And so we've spent a lot of time here and kind of really tried to, when people talk about what pre-con is for me, to me, it's about a mindset shift. And when you can get the mindset shift onto project success, we found some really great alignment, and people are pulling towards the same goals. And so we've really we've tried to refine that. I don't know if you're ever going to get a perfect formulaic kind of, everybody in pre-con and estimating has an engineering thought process where you can kind of go from A to B to C. That's not going to happen in team building and alignment. But I got also told early on by our former CEO, which was, our goal should be to be in a meeting and not know who works for who. Yeah. And if you have that type of collaboration, you've created a highly functioning team, and that's going to drive success.
Yeah. And listen, that can be done in a number of ways. I mean, I always talk about like technology and talent. I mean, communication is so important when you're trying to get that alignment and that three-legged stool to stand strong and as a good foundation for the project. And if you can get that, but I mean, it's really difficult to do, especially if you're not a good communicator. Or do you guys use technology or visuals to kind of give them an idea, the owners, keep them up to speed? What way does that work, or how does that relationship work?
I don't know if there's a specific technology, but transparency in the process, right? And so, unfortunately, in pre-con, you got to be really good at delivering bad news. And that comes in trust building, and you got to be able to communicate. And I would love to sit here and say I can always just give good news, but that's not pre-con. And those tough conversations are trust building. You start to be able to have open dialogue about what's best. And so, not necessarily, Gareth, visuals or technology, as much as that candid conversation that we're going to do what's best for you and the project. And someone was asking me the other day, it's like, I look at pre-con as the art of building trust, and then operations is the art of keeping the trust you built. And so much in what this relationship is so early on, and hopefully you're lucky enough to get repeat work with the same clients so that trust process can go quicker, but it doesn't always happen. And so just being able to be that trusted advisor that we try to be is really important.
Yeah, well, it must be working at. And when you think about your revenue last year, 400 million, you're across resident, commercial, tenant fit out, you must be doing something right. Because if I'm right in saying a lot of your stuff is negotiated and repeat business, is it? And even word of mouth, you kind of pride yourself in that, especially in that area that you've almost got locked down, is Orange County, Southern California.
Yeah, We definitely take pride in the brand and the relationships we've built in the business. We span from South Orange County to Santa Barbara. We stay right where we know we're going to create success for our clients and our partners. And you're right. We look at success as being referred to another project by a project we're building on. And so we really look to build that relationship. And that's, been our DNA for the last 63 years. And so, yeah, I think we're continuing to build great teams, and we want to work with great clients and great design teams. And that's, stated on our business plan and really who we are.
Brilliant. And one thing I wanted to ask you, because there will be people listening to this podcast that are on the operations side, and they may have been asked or maybe be considering going into pre-construction. What process did you change within pre-construction coming from the operations? Obviously, there's a bedding in period where you sit down and you watch how things are done in pre-construction. But what process did you put in place to improve the pre-construction services of Schneider Langston?
Yeah. I think one of the processes where we put a huge focus on is design management. We look at them in buckets, right? We've got cost management. Our estimating team's great. So it's getting the right budget. Design management, getting the right design. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Risk management, the right contract, the right schedule. And then there's admin side. But on the design management, we put a real focus, and COVID changed things as well, going remote and design team collaboration via only, Zoom or Teams. I don't know if it was it worked, and we had to make it work, and the design world adapted quickly. But it made a challenge on the contractor side to ensure the level of quality that we hope to be able to bring forth to our operations team. And so we spent a long time, Gareth, kind of really diving into design management and how do we get the drawings right, and what does that time period look like, and how do we not disrupt the development schedule for what our clients are trying to succeed on start time, but how do we build certainty into that the drawings we know we're going to go out and price really have the best information to you're going to get scope clarity, but we also believed that you're going to get the best price when the drawings are to a level where that unknown factor was kind of taken out of them. And so we've built a pretty detailed process through constructability, through design iterations to really try to generate, the most complete drawings we can. So coming from the ops side, right, it's how would you feel if you knew you had a really good set of plans that you can really kind of go out and execute your plan to, not having to go spend a lot of your time. Look, it'll never be perfect, and I wish I could say it would be. You're going to have to go solve problems. You're going to have to go work with your subcontractors and design teams to come up with resolutions. But what if you could spend more time being proactive about trying to accelerate and get out in front than have to be reactive by fixing things that could have been addressed? And that mindset shift to our ops teams where we can be kind of pushing forward is what we're hoping to kind of generate.
Brilliant. And I love that, because you're almost going into the client, because what is the biggest kind of bane in people's lives on the GC side is the drawings from the architect or the drawings from the client, they're nothing. We kind of got to make it up. So you're getting in early, probably part of your pre-construction services offering, getting the drawings, but you're also helping out your contractors on that. So when you hand them the drawings, it's as simple and as straightforward and as complete as possible.
Yeah, that's the goal. We've seen good success. And again, I'll go back to the team has to buy in that we're going to take the time and we're going to put the level of effort needed to get to those drawings to that level. And more importantly, we all understand the value that's going to create, right? And it's going to be, hopefully less RFIs and less change orders and less CA time on the design team, and more ability to really be kind of proactive in the approach. So yeah, we've
Brilliant.
really put a big push on that, and I think it's helped our ops teams be have a different perspective of what pre-con can do for them. So I think that's kind of the
Brilliant.
message.
Yeah, you must have some data on that now, Adam. I mean, you've been in Precon 4, 5, 6 years from Schneider Langston. I mean, you must have some data going now and saying, right, okay, RFIs before I came in or before this process was implemented was X amount. It's now down to X amount.
Yeah, we're I love the question, and we're right on the tail cycle of having 3 or 4 projects that have gone through our full cycle that we're going to be using comparatively. And so while I don't have the exact results because the projects are just finishing on, I do know that we have a few projects that probably in the $45 million range, to give you sense of scope, that are under 100 R5s.
Brilliant.
And
Unbelievable.
in this business today, one, it's a testament to the ops team kind of working through things, but it was a buy-in to the whole team that we're going to spend the time, we're going to get the drawings right, and it's created a terrific product, a really seamless product that has had minimal delays, minimal change orders that you would say could have been prevented early on. Always there's changes, but it's been a really good project. So I love to
Brilliant.
share that data with you when it's done, but we're right on that tail end.
I love it. I love it. If you get a chance, and I know you've listened to a few episodes of the podcast, listen to the one I'm going to release now in a couple of weeks. Wes Palmisano, he's in New Orleans. He literally has built his company on 2 things: in pre-construction services, and he does exactly that. It's an incredible story, but it relates to exactly what you've just said. So fair play to you, because although it's easy kind of going in and doing that and move from the operations side, but I'm sure that's taken time, and I know you're saying that you've got to have buy-in from the ops team and you've got to have buy-in from the client, but it's got to be driven and forced forward by the pre-construction department, and it's not always easy. And I'm sure you get it from your peer groups at other companies. I get it all the time, and they're saying, I can't sell pre-construction services, Gareth. What am I doing wrong? I'm hearing companies getting 300, 400 grand on a $100 million project of pre-construction services, and because it's hard. So fair play to you and the guys.
No, thanks. And I think you hit something on the head there that's important, I think, and it's a proactive approach in pre-con. And as soon as we feel that the pre-con process has become reactive and we're just kind of reporting the news you already knew, or you are just responding to what's already been done, you weren't part of that decision making, I think that's a really important pivot point in the process to kind of have that time out and go, what are we doing here? Because that's not creating value. That's just to tell you the news. Let us be part of that process as we create the news together, right? And
Yeah.
so proactive is just kind of it's got to be in our DNA in the pre-con world and out in front.
Yeah, and that's got to come from the top as well. You know what I mean? You got to be given the resources, the time, the understanding that it works, and it's obviously paid off, and it's continuing to pay off. So brilliant. Now, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and we touched on it briefly. 2022 was difficult for everyone, not least the construction market with the fluctuating prices. What are you finding in 2023? What are you most looking forward to when it comes to the market?
It's a great question, and one we get asked all the time. And I think, look, I think 2023 is the year of uncertainty. If you looked at 21 and 22 were the years of growth, I think everybody's sitting here going, I just want to know what 23 is going to be like. At least 21 and 22, you knew it was continuing going up, and you at least could create mitigative strategies. 23 is a bit of uncertainty. And while everyone would like pricing to drop, it's been relatively flat. So we haven't seen it yet, especially in the Southern California market. You feel a change in the market where people are starting to have more interest in trying to go generate work. Subcontractors are reaching out differently than they were. But the beginning of 23 has been, we've seen a significant influx of opportunities come in. And so from a pre-con estimating side, we're at the top. I mean, you can't take on, we're pretty much, as much as we can take on or seen come in the first few years. And we kind of thought that would happen because the Q3, Q4 was slow trying to get things in, and people are trying to now get creative in how we can, how can we get something started? And so I think a real important part is understanding the deal, right? And asking those questions at a higher level, and not, you got to understand financing sources. You got to understand kind of your debt and equity markets, and where are they lending, so I think 23, we have a good backlog of work. There's a lot of great opportunities coming in. There's going to be some uncertainty later on in this year. I think it's going to take a little bit to get to that uncertainty. But I think it's going to be a time where you really can stay true to your values and work with great clients. And, I think hopefully your reputation puts you right through it.
That's it. And that's what's going to happen. It's almost going to separate the men from the boys. Literally, the people that have been in their markets, have looked after their clients are going to come back, but probably not at the volume that they were doing. But one thing we did had a chat on a pre-show was the whole, you reckon that residential side is going to come strong in 2023. I know that Schneider Langston's about 30% of that at the minute. You see that growing. Talk us through that idea.
Yeah, so we're a pretty diverse organization, from smaller projects in our Optum group through our base commercial division, which is kind of the foundation of our organization, and that goes from office to healthcare to studio work and institutional work, and then we have Snyder Langston Residential, which was formed in 2005 to kind of be part of some of the mixed use projects that we were a part of. We kind of said, why aren't we building the residential? And so we built this division, and it's been a great success for the organization. And so that does about 30% typically. We've seen times, and I've mentioned to you, being that diverse in the market allows you to ebb and flow where the deal flow is and where money is. And I do think, you just can't deny the demographics of the housing shortage and fundamentals of needing to create, rental properties in Southern California is still there, and the demand. And so we've seen, and we'll continue to see opportunities on the residential side. And so, there's no magic number for us on revenue distribution, but, times where lending's tight and such, we've seen a little bit more shift to the residential side, and we're geared up for that. And that's what the diversity of the organization creates. And so, I just don't think you can create, you're just never going to get rid of the fundamentals and needing affordable and market rate housing in Southern California.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, if you don't have that foundation and have that, it's very difficult to create something sustainable. So you've obviously done that as well. And then, Adam, if I was to kind of give you, outside of the market, your group yourself, I mean, you're across all of pre-construction. What are you going to be looking at in 2023? Are you going to be looking at how processes you can improve, technology that you can bring in, maybe embrace, possibly add more people, the VDC, the BIM side of things? What is a $400 million contractor pre-construction department looking forward to in 2023?
Yeah, great timing, and we kind of just going through our business planning, and a couple of things. I think one is really with the pre-con projects we have is creating, we're big on just making sure there's alignment in the scope of services that we provide. And so that to us really is just kind of creating that alignment, both on the owner side and internally, so that we can execute to a plan. So really building a process around that. Training is a big one for us. We want to make sure everyone in the organization kind of has that their hand on their pulse on pre-con, on what it means to us at Snyder Langston. And really, as I mentioned, we kind of leverage our ops teams to be part of pre-con early on, and so making sure they're versed. And then what we want to do also is kind of integrate some of our process into Procore, actually, and use the technology of what we have. And we've built what we call a pre-construction toolkit, which is everything from what pre-con is at Snyder Langston, through the pre-con agreements we use, through design management and cost management. And, that's been a rigor of a lot of people's input over the past few years and subsequent to that. But we're trying to build that into a seamless data flow into Procore where we can check it. People can have access to it, and ultimately create dashboards to who's using what and how. And so how do we better it and make sure that we leverage technology? And, I collaborate highly with operations and estimating, and I'm right in the middle of everyone. And so just really looking to enhance our process as much as we can. That's kind of 23 is about just reinforcing and enhancing the process.
Absolutely. And I love the pre-con data side of things. I mean, if you can get that into Procore, and get your processes into technology, it surely should increase your capacity to do things. So I love it. Well, listen, Adam, this has been fantastic. Thank you very much. It's nice getting a good understanding of what's happening in the West Coast, but also what's going on at Snyder Langston. So thanks for giving up your time. I'm sure we'll have you on in the future again, but all the best for 2023.
That's been fun, and thanks for having me, and love listening to the podcast, and continued success.